What is going on, everybody? Welcome to our brand new podcast. It is Hobby Talk, a cardboard podcast. I am your host, Murph. I have my good friend, Ricky Rips. Ricky, please say hello.
How's it going, guys? It's Ricky Rips here. Ricky Rips MA, coming from Illinois, but I'm still MA.
So, Ricky and I got together and we wanted to be co hosts to this glorious new podcast because not only do we have a lot to talk about in regards to the hobby, but I really do believe that picking each other's brains, going back and forth, and discussing all things hobby is something that at least the community around here needs. I think that social media has been asking for something like this here locally. And I think going upon their request to bring you this podcast, I think it's going to be very, very exciting for not only me, but I'm sure Ricky as well. Just again, so we can sit down and talk about, random hobby topics and let you guys listen into what we have to say. So we're taking our conversations that we have in like text messaging and Instagram messaging, and we're just going to be talking about it. And we're very, very excited to bring that. Ricky, you want to say a little bit about yourself outside of the minor introduction you've already given? Like, tell me how you started collecting, your favorite sport to collect, and where do you envision your collecting prowess going over the next 6 months to a year, so on.
So I started collecting about two years ago. It started with random mystery packs while I was at work grabbing because I used to work next to a wall. When we were bored, we would just grab one of those random mystery packs, open them up for fun while at work, and it kind of just snowballed from there. So I've been having a good time doing it. It's been fun. Murph, one of the first card shops I visited, sat there for 4 hours talking. So that's how I know it's gonna work. Even
And
before,
that's the thing. Like, one of the reasons why like we think this is such a good idea is because whenever we're together, whether it was here at the shop, browsing through boxes, obviously once you found yourself upgrading to case cards, and then obviously most recently at the National, just chatting away. And like, I mean, to be able to go from, again, not knowing each other when you just simply walked in the first time, to us just having endless conversations literally about the hobby in a variety of different ways. It's absolutely going to work, and it's going to be wildly, wildly fun, I believe. I didn't mean to cut you off. Were you done?
no, it's all good. But yeah, I mean, baseball's my favorite sport to collect. I PC Juan Soto, Mookie Betts, James Wood, who's next,
Shout out
and
James Wood.
I'm just having a good time doing it so far. I this I've been telling people I know I like this because this is the least I've stuck with the hobby.
That's an important point to kind of go off of. Is hobbies are meant to be fun. And I tell people this all the time. If you can make money along the way, that is great. But
Mm-hmm.
hobbies do cost money. And I think people don't understand. Whatever, pick a hobby: train collecting, car collecting, woodworking, pick any hobby. You have to dish out money for it and you have to enjoy it. Otherwise, it's not a hobby. It's a job at that point, really. And I think having fun needs to be the foundational principle in this hobby. And again, just from knowing you've gotten to know you, you are having fun, especially with, seeing Juan Soto, get hot over the summer, Mookie Betts emerge as the MVP favorite, going back and forth talking about James Wood, who was a nobody at first, then he became a top prospect, and people still don't understand it, but we keep talking about him. And we'll get into like baseball predictions and such like that. We'll dive into prospecting later on as the episodes roll on. But James Wood is somebody that we've really gotten high on, and I'm hoping, outside of just collecting and liking him, I'm hoping it pans out, because I hate being wrong about prospects, because it is very hard, and I take pride in being right about prospecting. But I'm trying to think back to when you first rolled into the shop. Did you just like, because you live like an hour away, so did you just type in card shops near me? 'Cause that seems to be the
that's
go-to for
exa-
everybody.
that's exactly what I did. I actually saw you on Facebook. I
Okay.
think you popped up as an ad, so I was like, all right,
Ooh.
I'll add that one to the list.
Ooh.
Either an ad or a recommendation or something. But
Yeah.
yeah, So you and a few other local ones that were all right. There were no Murph's Car Time Sports Shop, but I visited other ones, and you were the one that I went to the longest. I was there picking Jonathan Taylor car out of the value boxes because I thought he was going to have an MVP season before that terrible last game.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's just like, prospecting is super hard to predict and foresee. I mean, you can say this about any sport really, football, basketball, obviously hockey collectors. It's tough predicting the next guy and buying those cheap dollar cards, hoping that they turn into $5 to $10. Not crazy amount of money, but you turn a dollar card to $10 10 times. Well, there's $100
Mm-hmm.
right there. So that's it's a really cool story to just kind of think back on because obviously I was a part of it and just thinking back it's like wow it's been like 2 years yeah dollar boxes 4 hour
Mm-hmm.
conversations and then here we are having a podcast so I mean that's really cool. um Quickly go over myself. I started collecting around 2002, so that's 21 years ago. My dad got me into it by he used to be a Fred Lynn. Well, yeah, he used to be a Fred Lynn collector. Collected all of his rookie cards, all of his cards, no matter what team he was on. So when I started collecting Nomar Garciaparra because he was the face of the Red Sox at the time. And from there, it was just Nomar, Nomar, Nomar. Then it turned into Red Sox, collecting Manny, collecting Pedro cards. Obviously, Ortiz became a huge factor in '03, and that just snowballed into, well, let me collect baseball cards because I like this random player on this random team and so on. And then baseball turned into football, football turned into basketball, and just continually snowballed from there. So that's how I started collecting. And my favorite sport to collect is obviously where I started is baseball because I think baseball is arguably the best sport. I know we're probably in the minority on that one, but I just think from a
Mm-hmm.
fan perspective and watching and just getting to know it, I think it's one of the greatest sports to watch, greatest sport to follow. Again, that's just my opinion. I know you will agree. And again, we're in the minority, and that's fine. But baseball is my true bread and butter. It is my love, and it's exactly what I got into it. And I'll never not love baseball. So that's kind of where I started collecting. And again, 21 years. It's grown. It's evolved. It's developed insanely compared to what I remember it originally being. Obviously, you got more business mentality. You have up and down market trends that you need to pay attention to. The COVID pandemic obviously was a huge factor. So if I could go back 20 years to when I was collecting back then, I would love to do that,
Mm-hmm. I
but I
know.
can't. So we just have to kind of stick with the ball rolling. But yeah, 21
Yeah.
years, crazy to think that, especially where I'm only 26. So I mean, I started when I was 5 years old, and I wouldn't trade a single thing for it. I need a drink.
Yeah, and your shop just hit your 2 year anniversary. Congratulations.
Thank you,
Um,
thank you. I appreciate
Most
that.
businesses don't make it past 2 years, and you did. Um, so,
So,
so how did
oh, so
you how
all I
did
was
you
gonna go ahead, go ahead, go ahead.
how did you know it was time to open a shop when you did? How did
Um, to,
what made you the
yeah,
time?
to backtrack, I started doing the whole buying and selling in like 2014. I was selling off old Yu-Gi-Oh cards. So it probably the seeds were planted way back then. And a few years go by, I'm in college. Obviously, I'm still doing the buying, I'm still doing the selling. And I finished college and I wanted to do something. This was 2019. I finished my degree and I was like, all right, I want to do something sports related. What is that going to be? I don't know. Do I want to be a coach? Do I want to open my own clinic? Do I want to be an athletic counselor, an entrepreneur? So I just had a bunch of ideas, literally just stuck on a wall. And it's funny because I sold something on eBay, like right as I'm thinking about this. I'm like, huh, maybe this is something to really dive into. So I just did a bunch of research. I looked up how to run a card business, how to run a retail business, just University of YouTube, just looking, and just doing
Mm-hmm.
a ton of research. Then, after countless conversations with myself, which sounds weird, but it's a thing. Countless conversations
That's what it
with
takes.
yeah, you just have to have internal conversations. Countless conversations with my wife, Mrs. Murph, and I finally decided to, all right, let's try it. Let's try it for a couple seasons, a couple years. If it doesn't work out, then I'll fall back on my degree. So I'm getting ready. 2020 rolls around. It's like, all right, I'll open up this summer. I'll open up in the fall. It'll be very exciting. Boom, COVID hits. Not going to open just because you have to prioritize making sure food's on the table, making sure the bills are paid because you just don't know what the outcome of the pandemic was going to be at the time. And then
Mm-hmm.
it was like the end of 2020. And I was like, I still want to do this. COVID looks like it's a thing of the past now. Let's re-dive into it. And took me a couple months to find a place to do all that research, like I said, and I opened in August of 2021. And like you said, it's been 2 years, which I'm extremely blessed for. I'm grateful for. And one of the big driving forces why I didn't want to open the shop was, upon my research, 8 out of 10 businesses, small businesses, don't make it to 18 to 24 months, year and a half, 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to define those odds. I wanted to be one of those 2 small businesses. And so once I hit that 2-year mark, I'm not going to lie, I got a little emotional. So I'm always appreciative of everyone saying congratulations. So thank you.
Not a problem. You earned it.
Oh man, it feels good to have reached this mark. I mean, it was awesome to reach 1 year, but I mean, again, ever since opening, I wanted to reach that 2-year mark. That was like my big thing. You know, as fun as the 1-year anniversary trade night was, as fun as just having 1 year open, it was all about 2 years. And now that we're past that, try to get through year 3, I guess, right?
There we go.
All right. So that's a little bit about ourselves. Obviously, we wanted to spend, a few moments just talking about myself, Ricky, just so you guys have an idea of who we are as these podcast hosts, just so you're not listening to some random people, but you actually have an idea of where they came from, what they like to collect, how they started collecting. So hopefully, the 10 minutes or so that we talked about that is well worth it, because now we want to dive into the meat and potatoes of what's going on around us right now. So I think it's best to not recap the whole NFLPA and Panini thing, since that happened a few weeks ago, but it does play a major factor in the future of football cards. And Ricky, I know we've talked about this through messaging. Again, we're taking those conversations and putting them in this podcast. So just from looking on the outside, looking into the hobby, when you think of the future of football cards, is there anything that you see, anything that you think is going to happen, anything you may want to happen? Enlighten us on your opinions about the future of just football cards.
Just football cards.
Yes.
So I know with this whole confusing mess and whatever is going on, a lot of people that I've seen are kind of hopeful and anticipating Topps Chrome football coming back. Because I know a lot of people used to love that set, and those are pretty nice cards. So if those cards could come back with the licensing and all that stuff, I think that could be a big hit. And now,
So,
but with Panini losing their license, I wonder if this just kind of turn into Panini baseball, where it's cool to
unlicensed.
rip, but that's really all it's gonna be.
And that's what I foresee for the near future, at least. I mean, I know Topps basketball was coming out later this year. Again, it's going to be unlicensed because Panini still has the NBA rights as of now, at least. But people love Topps Chrome football, Topps football, and although Fanatics can start making that, they don't have the rights to the NFL yet, so they can't put Patriots, Bears, Chiefs, whoever. They can only literally make Panini baseball cards, but just with football, so unlicensed, no team
Mm-hmm.
logos. And before the whole football thing, I was asking people and telling people, like, when the basketball cards were the only thing that was Fanatics was going to be making with the unlicensed, I was like, collectors, fans love Topps basketball, but it's going to be unlicensed. So what are we going to favor? Are we going to favor the product that we all used to love, or are we going to favor the licensure? And I think with football cards going to be unlicensed again for the foreseeable future that we know of, I think they're going to favor the unlicensing only because we're not getting any other kind of football cards. people are gonna want Bryce Young, C.J. Stroud, Anthony Richardson rookies. They're gonna want to have those fun rips, and the only way to do that is with them being unlicensed. So I just don't know. Well, from outside looking in, I just don't know what other people are going to be doing if they choose to stand on that mountain of, oh, I don't like it because it's unlicensed. I'm not going to collect it because it doesn't have the logos. Well, what are you
Well,
going
as
to
far as
collect then? What are you going to buy then?
I know. Well, as far as I know, Panini's still releasing cards, right? Because I think they've taken it to
Legally though,
court. So they
that's
advertised yesterday that they're putting new cards on the Panini stuff for Panini points.
I saw that. I even
So
commented. I
I
was like, is this legal?
I think they're taking it to court. So it's kind of like a baseball player
Appealing a
um,
suspension.
filling a suspension so they could play during the suspension.
Yeah.
That's how I'm kind of understanding it. I could be
And
completely wrong. I don't have a law degree, but
yeah, right. I mean, maybe we might have to become get our own law degree for the next episode so we can kind of
yeah,
talk more
right.
about this. But I mean, the way that you just said that actually kind of makes sense because when a player gets hit with a suspension, let's call it 5 games, like you expect them to miss those next 5 games, but they appeal it, which they can play through the appealing. If Panini's taken this to court, which they are, I guess that kind of like pauses the contract termination. It just I just feel like a suspension and a contract termination are two different things. Again, we're no law experts.
Yeah,
What do
yeah,
we know? But again, like even when the contract was terminated on that Monday, I'm gonna call it Black Monday because it was like the day that the hobby just like shifted. Then they released Luminance on that Wednesday, and I know
yeah.
that Panini came out with a statement, the following day, but like, should that a product have already come out? Was there a certain window that they're able to still release products because it was already printed, it was already packaged, it was already shipped out, and such like that? But like, I'm just trying to think of future products that are going to be coming out. We're going to be getting Donruss. We're going to be getting Absolute soon. Should those products even come out? Are they legally able to come out? Like again, where are we swimming in these legal murky waters? Personally, I have no idea what the situation is. But I like your perspective about the whole suspension thing. I think that is something to think about and consider because it might be it might allow them to print these cards. It might allow them to still push these cards out.
Yeah,
But I
so
mean,
I feel Panini's probably rushing everything because they're probably just as certain as we are about this whole situation. So I don't know.
like
Yeah,
like I mean, Panini's always pushed out products seemingly every week.
yeah,
But are they going to feel even more pressure to push these out because let's say a court ruling happens within the next month. I mean, I don't know how long this process is going to take, but let's say a court ruling happens on, next month saying that they can't print any more products you've already started, you can push through and finish. After that, nothing. So I feel like they're just going to try to push everything out within that month. And it's going to affect the quality. It's going to
yeah,
affect, centering and the print lines and all that stuff, things that we know of. And I think the NFLPA took that into consideration and be like, wow, your products suck. And we don't want our fans collecting these because they're garbage. And I think that's how we all feel because, again, without the licensure thing, I think anybody and everybody would have stopped collecting Panini football cards a while ago. Like,
hmm
let's say it was an exclusive licensing. Topps and Panini both had licensure, or let's say Topps was making football cards without licensure. I think people would probably collect those over Panini cards, knowing the quality control is ass. And like, I mean, that's just my opinion. That's what I would do because I think Panini baseball products are better than some of Topps products. Personal opinion. I like the shine. I like the glare. But
yeah.
The
Well,
NFLPA is sick of Panini's, lack of attention to detail. Let's call it, as us collectors are too.
I'm glad that you ended on the us collectors thing because that's a big thing too.
Mm.
Collectors versus flippers and all that stuff. if you're buying to flip, buying to whatever, you're gonna want the licensed product, whether it's Panini or Topps. That's why a lot of people like Topps ball now more than Panini, because personally, I think Panini's designs are great for baseball,
I agree.
but the whole not licensed thing kind of draws that away. That's why there's no. I don't want to say there's no value, but they don't go for nearly as much as they should.
Like
But
the way that, like the
that,
way that I look at the whole
yeah,
unlicensure thing is just like when you get Topps cards outside of like Topps Chrome and like the really high end stuff, like Series 1, 2, and update, like they're cool cards, but they're all standard. Standard card is just paper based cards. You might get a couple shiny inserts, stars of the MLB or whatever. But when you get like the Prism Mosaic cards, like you're going to be getting the shine, the cracked ice, the shimmers and such. And I think Panini did a decent enough job to kind of hide the name on the jersey and the logo on the helmet to the point where
mm,
it shouldn't be hated on that much. But again, I understand why, because it only says Boston, it only says
yeah.
New York, it doesn't say Red Sox or Yankees. So like, I mean, from a flipping perspective, I couldn't agree more. And, people want, the whole package. But I think collectors, if you like Julio Rodriguez, I'm just going to use him as an example. I don't think it should matter what it says on the front of the, if anything at all. I mean, I
Yeah.
could be mistaken. I want to hear your thoughts about this. If you're a Ellie De La Cruz fan and you find a rookie Prism card of his that's like numbered to 99, still a really good card. Whether to flip or to collect.
No, I mean for my PC, I buy unlicensed products. I just like the way they look. So when buying for PC, I don't mind it. I think they're
Okay,
cool.
and I think that
But
people need to keep that mindset in mind. Buy what you like for your PC. It's your PC, not mine. At the end of the day, it's not my PC. I don't care what's in it. As long as you like it, you love it, you want it. And I think, again, that's kind of where the whole flipping versus collecting kind of comes into play, which we could talk about too. Is, collectors are almost a thing of the past. There's probably a very small percentage of true collectors in this hobby, and it's become a hobby about flipping and such. And the flipper is going to want the one that has the most value, and 9 out of 10 times it's going to be that licensed product. But if you like the unlicensed stuff, nothing should stop you from getting it outside of maybe it
mm,
being too expensive. And I think that's another reason why I think we're gonna have a really good podcast, us two, is because we're both collectors at the end of the day, but we also have our fair share of flipping too. So we have both mindsets to kind of talk about. But again, at the end of the day, you're a collector of who you like. I'm a collector of who I like. So we can, hit it from both sides.
yeah, there's people in this hobby who only collect, and there's people in this hobby who only flip. So I think you know, I, we like you said, we have both experience on both sides,
Mm-hmm.
being buyers, sellers, collectors. But yeah,
So
going back to the whole Panini baseball thing, I think they have very nice designs because they almost have to make up for the non-licensing.
that's a good outlook, which I've never thought of before. Almost having to insert a couple extra cracked ice cards or whatever it may be.
Because you're gonna find a random pitcher, a random Oakland A's reliever in a mosaic baseball set. You're gonna find the big names to
Mm-hmm.
kind of draw people to collecting Panini baseball cards. You're gonna get the good names, good designs, good pack odds to find numbered cards, autograph cards, whatever. So I think they that was them trying to draw people into Panini baseball. I don't know how well it's worked outside of
I
myself
know
because it,
I know from around here, Panini baseball is very tough to sell solely because of the licensure thing. People would
mhm,
rather buy the hobby, top series 2 or 1, whatever, pick whatever hobby box for 70, 80, 90, whatever the hell it's going for, comparatively to like a Prism um, quick pitch box where you're still getting the auto. You're still going to get like, you're going to get 10, I don't know, call it cracked ice inserts, at least last year's product. But whereas the top series one, which is a similar price, you're getting one auto or relic card.
Really?
You're not guaranteed any numbered cards. You're not guaranteed any inserts. I mean, again, you might pull stars of the MLB cards out of a few packs. That's really the extent of what you're getting. The top series line, series 1, 2, and update are great collector products. I think series one's a great intro product. And then, you go down the line to an update as you collect throughout the course of the year. And people would prefer those and spend the same amount of money just hunting, hoping that they get the auto, than getting the quick pitch box, which is, like a hobby light box for those that don't know. If people are familiar with Mosaic, No Huddle, or basketball, Fast Break, Prism, quick pitch, same thing. It's like a in between Mega and Hobby Box. People would rather buy the Topps product for the same price than get the guaranteed auto from the quick pitch box, 10 cracked ice, probably a couple numbered cards. And again, it'd be a total shine product with, being Prism cards. So if I had the $90 or whatever it's going for, I probably would prefer the Prism box. Just personal opinion, just because of, I think I'm going to get more out of it than I would out of the Topps box. Plus, what are you going to do with all the base cards that you get from the Topps box anyways?
Yeah.
Like, let's be honest. But baseball is a very interesting conversation and a very interesting topic to just talk about in regards to the hobby, for not only the licensed versus unlicensed thing, but obviously there's the whole Fanatics piece of it, when they bought Topps out a couple years ago, which we can obviously talk about later on. But I kind of want to circle back to football cards, because obviously the season's starting. Well, we're recording on Wednesday, so you're seeing this on Thursday. The season starts tonight with the Lions and the Chiefs. So, Ricky, when you fast forward yourself to the Monday after the Super Bowl, and that this team won the Super Bowl, I don't want the team that won the Super Bowl, but when you look at Monday after the Super Bowl, what two quarterbacks do you see needing to be talked about that following day as Super Bowl champions?
Whew.
So, like, what two players need that Super Bowl the most?
It's kind of tough because I feel they're in the same division. I'm gonna have,
Uh-oh.
and obviously they both can't. They can't make the Super Bowl. They can't win the Super Bowl. But I'm gonna go Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson.
So I understand the whole Josh Allen piece of it, because he's a very high-profile guy. People buy and invest in him already. Lamar had the whole contract dispute. But when you look at both of let's just go with optic base cards, 10s. Josh Allen's like $400. Lamar Jackson's probably a little over $100. What makes them, since they're kind of on two different pedestals, when you think of tier one quarterbacks to invest in, Josh Allen's probably there. When you think of tier two, tier three, that's probably where Lamar is. What makes them need it the most?
It's kind of just their markets. If their market's not sustainable, if they're not in anything, like at some point, it's going to have to come down. There's no reason why, like you said, Josh Allen in the hobby, he's considered probably a tier one quarterback up there with Mahomes, maybe Burrow. He's getting up there.
Yeah.
But yeah, like at this point in his career, he has to do something for his cards to maintain value. At this point, he's on paper. He's another quarterback in the league. He hasn't necessarily done anything.
And I don't want to open a can of worms, but he's just like Luka Doncic for basketball. But we're not going down that road. We're not going down that road. We know how we feel. We know how we feel on that. But I think Josh Allen is an absolute no-brainer. Similar to Luka, again, not opening that can of worms. But when you look at their resumes, you see absolutely nothing besides some All-Stars, Pro Bowls, good numbers throughout the course of the season, maybe some MVP votes. Besides that, there's really no difference between Josh Allen and, let's say, Mac Jones at the end of the day. You know, obviously Josh Allen's gone further in the playoffs, but like no MVPs. I don't know how many Pro Bowls Josh Allen has, but like we're not judging them based off of Pro Bowls and AFC Championship appearances. We judge quarterbacks in sports debates and conversations at the bar, at a restaurant, at the dinner table based on their championships.
Mm-hmm.
Brady has 7, Montana has 4, and we get the picture. Um, so the two quarterbacks, I think, I love the Josh Allen one, so obviously I'm not going to say that, but I completely agree with you there. One for me is Joe Burrow. I'm going to give you one at a time. Joe Burrow, because he's been there, he's lost. He was in the AFC title game a couple times, lost. So we've seen him get there. So his resume is not a total zero, but I mean, in hindsight, just about is. But Joe Burrow was so hyped up coming out of LSU, 1-1 pick, and he tears his ACL, and then it just his market just booms. But at least you see the potential there. You've seen him reach just about the end, winning the Super Bowl, and then obviously losing. So we know he can get there. We know he could win. I mean, if Aaron Donald didn't strip sack him in that last drive, he probably hits Jamar for an wide open touchdown and they win if he had just a quarter of a second longer. Neither here nor there. So, I mean, when you look at the AFC, it's going to be insanely tough. And again, I think Joe Burrow, who's had that high value, who still does, can get there and win. I think is going to significantly help because let's say he like loses in the divisional round. So why are we investing in Joe Burrow anymore? I mean, what's the point?
I,
Um,
I think Joe Burrow is young enough, and I don't want to say inexperienced, but hasn't played the amount of seasons where if he falls short this one year, it won't be
mhm.
terrible for his market. Just because, like you said, we see the potential, we see how good he is and can be. He's still young. They still have a great young team.
Mm.
So,
I put Joe Burrow in that conversation just because for two reasons. Obviously, high profile kind of guy, uh, top 3, 4 quarterback in the league, wherever you want to put him, and his first overall pick. You take the first overall pick, you expect them to be on your team for 10, 15 years and to win you countless Super Bowls. And again, we've seen him get to that point, and his value's always stayed high. Tua's value has dropped because of the concussion and injuries. Herbert's value has started to drop because he's done nothing. He made the playoffs once and blew a 28-point lead. So it's like Joe Burrow's value's never really bottomed out. So again, why is it still up here? Potential, obviously. We know he can do it. First overall pick, a lot of hype. So again, how are we going to maintain this hype and for it to increase is by winning a Super Bowl. I don't think it's going to crash overnight if he doesn't win. Like let's say Matthew Stafford, who did win and then it crashed. But two different people. So my second guy is actually somebody that I did allude to, and this is Justin Herbert. And they're not going to win this year, I don't think. But they have the pieces, they have the team to do it. But I put Justin Herbert in this conversation because he's been in the league just as long as as Burrow. He hasn't had major injuries, not that I can remember. I think he missed a couple games, but I feel like I'm blanking on an injury whatever, it doesn't matter. Made it to the playoffs last year. We saw what he could do in the playoffs, went up 4 touchdowns. And I don't blame him for blowing that lead. I blame the coaching staff for blowing that lead. But this is a guy who was way up here. His cards have already sold for millions of dollars. Now it's down here. And how do we go from here to here? And how do we go from here back up to here? And I think that's with the Super Bowl. And if he doesn't win or show signs of competency of winning games, making it to the Super Bowl, maybe even losing, then I think he's just another quarterback in the league at that point. But the hype and the potential is still all there right now. But when you look at just guys that we've all bought and all invested in, if you picture just the top 5 guys just blindly, more often than not, Herbert's in that conversation. But I'd love to hear what you have to say about Justin Herbert.
I've just never, well, obviously, going into the league, the potential and all that stuff. But
Hmm.
other than that, I just never understood why his market
Me neither.
is
Me
so high.
neither.
Like he gets the passing yards, like he has the stats, I guess. But even then, that guy,
And
like, what does he do? What?
in like that's the same thing again. It's similar to Luca with basketball. Is like Luca's a great player. Herbert's a great player. They both put up stats. Again, maybe some MVP votes. Outside of that, why is Luca cards going for crazy money? Why is Herbert cards going for crazy money, or at least was going for crazy money? Um, I'm not going to do it. This is the only thing I'll say about the whole Luca thing is Tatum, although he hasn't won and ultimately hasn't done anything, he's made it to the finals. He's been to countless conference finals, MVP votes, All-Star MVP. If you just put those two careers in perspective and compare them, I'm taking Jason Tatum's career thus far. Now, if I'm starting a new team, I'd understand the argument for Luca, but Tatum's cards are just significantly less than Luca's. So I look at the whole Herbert thing and you can even throw Barrow in this mix. Why were, at least I'll say were, their cards crazy money when they haven't done anything at the end of the day? Like, Mahomes, his cards deservingly so go for thousands of dollars, millions of dollars, deservingly so, because he's won 2 Super Bowls, 2 MVPs, and if he ends his career today, he's a Hall of Famer. But Herbert, again, optic base PSA 10s, whatever, shouldn't be going for what they should be going until he shows me something. Go on a 6-game winning streak to start the season. Throw 20 touchdowns and 2 interceptions. Show me the potential, which I've already seen, but show me the potential and the will to go out and do it. And I don't think we've seen that yet from Herbert.
Well, here's the thing too. It's like
Just went on a rant. Sorry.
no, I'm about to go on one too because
I'll sit back.
I don't understand people dishing out so much money. These unproven quarterbacks, like
No
I'll
sense.
get into it. Like Pickett, Ritter. Who else is there?
Howell.
People were high on Malik Willis for a second until he became
Joe
third
still
string
is.
quarterback.
Joe still
Well,
is.
it's like I just don't understand why people want to do like they see it as an investment. How is it an investment if you're buying it and selling it right away?
I've had this issue at the shop. I'll let you finish what you have to say first, but I've had this exact issue at the shop, and I'll get into that when you're done.
It's just I've never been one to understand it. I don't know if you do or not. Like I just never been on board that train where I'm looking to buy Pickett or Ritter or people like them.
So if I can get those guys under market value, I have to get them under market value with the um knowing the risk that they could suck. I mean, they're second year quarterbacks, but let's be honest. Well, Ritter only played 4 games last year. Pickett played 15 games. So Pickett's obviously has more experience, but they're super young. They're super volatile. They could blow up, uh, both good or bad. So you have to get them at a value that you feel comfortable getting them at, knowing the risk that they could fall flat on their face, injury aside, or maybe just performance. But you're buying it with the risk of hoping that they play fantastic and that they're top 12 quarterbacks in the league. So again, it's risk versus reward. If you can get them under value, you need to be comfortable with that value, knowing that it could go either way. Now, when I hear I want to buy because I'm investing, you can't buy a card investing and sell it the next day overnight. When I think of investments, I'm thinking I'm holding it for a period of time,
Mm-hmm.
a week, a month, a year. Like, I think Sam Howell's if you can get him for the right value, I think he's a good investment. Let's say you bought Sam Howell cards a month ago. The ones I bought at the National, I feel like I got at a good value, which was a month before the season starts. Actually, yeah, a month before the season starts.
Wow,
5, 6 weeks,
geez, it's
whatever.
already been a month.
I know, right? But I bought them knowing and thinking that he's going to play well. He's going to be the starter. He's playing Arizona week 1. And after hopefully he wins and looks good, then that value is going to jump up. Now, just because he's playing against a bad team, just because he's announced number one quarterback and, good team, good coaching, weapons and all that, doesn't mean that's going to show performance. So I'm still taking a risk myself. Now, the whole thing that I kind of alluded to, in the middle of your spiel there was, some people at trade night were buying, quarterback cards, but they didn't want to pay at market value. And now when you want to buy something, hoping that there is a fruitful return on the other end, let's say the card's $100, you're buying that card hoping to sell it at some point down the road for higher. I would think that we both agree with that. Obviously, we're not buying it to lose money. So when their value is when it's low and has a huge ceiling to go up, which any of those guys do, Pickett, Ritter, Howell, all those guys have the ceiling to go up. They have huge ceilings ahead of them if they play well. So even if you're not paying 70% comps, even if you're paying 85, call it 90% comps, you're still buying it with the hope and expectation that value in a month, in a couple of weeks, is higher than what you paid for. But again, it goes to the whole risk reward. You have to be able to risk buying a card for $100, knowing that it can go either way. And I just don't think people understand that. Is why are you buying it to begin with? Because you see a fruitful outcome on the other end. I just rambled.
No, I've just never understood because
I don't think people understand. I don't think people themselves even understand, and they're the ones that are doing it
because they're just buying what's hot, I guess. So it's like it's not a. I don't want to say it's a bad thing, but like know why you're buying them, know who you're buying. Like, don't just say I'm buying Kenny Pickett. Who is Kenny Pickett?
Like, why? What do you see in Kenny Pickett?
Does he have a good team? Is he a good young player? Like, I don't know.
Do you think he's going to be a dark horse in, let's say, fantasy, for instance? I mean, like, why are you buying this guy? Ask yourself, are you just buying it just to buy it? Like, I mean, that makes no sense.
I guarantee you, these people who are high on Pickett, Howell, Ritter, whatever, I guarantee you none of them drafted them.
Yeah, probably not. I love how you mentioned buying who's hot. And again, we can talk about this in another episode as I want to try to stay the course with football. But buying who's hot. Last year, going to baseball, Julio was hot. Everybody under the sun wanted Julio cards. This year, he has a slump to start the season. Ellie gets called up and blows up, and everybody wants Ellie cards. Nobody wants Julio cards. Everyone already sold them. Nobody wants Julio anymore. And when you buy now, Julio's hot as the sun, and Ellie's kind of gone down a little bit, but still fairly good. Mm-hmm. But he's a rookie. He's going to go through ups and downs. He has a wild swing that's either going to go 500 feet or he's going to strike out. That's just the kind of swing he has. But when you buy baseball, football, basketball, you need to understand that there's going to be risks and reward, like I was mentioning, but you also need to be able to hold it a little bit. Now, if you're tied for money and you need to pay your rent, whatever, fine, I get that. Bills come first, family comes first, whatever. But just don't sell it off just to sell it and go buy what's hot, because what's hot is already going to be above market value. People come in here all the time asking for Ellie cards. We've even mentioned this before, in one of the YouTube videos we did. That ship has sailed, long gone. Maybe you could buy the dip come off season, but people that bought Julio cards when he was slumping are reaping the rewards right now because they were patient, investing, and they didn't sell it off when he continued to slump and, until he got hot. So it's just, I think patience is something that people don't have the time for. That's why prospecting is so hard, because people can't sit there and wait for the prospects to develop. But baseball is such a long season where Julio could hit 4 home runs tonight, 5 home runs. Let's say he breaks a record, hits 5 home runs. That value is going to jump through the roof. But if he hits 3 home runs, it ain't going to do anything. If he strikes out 4 times tonight, it ain't going to do anything. It's just, you have to be willing to be patient. Whereas football, basketball for that matter, they're on more frequently. Well, I mean, football's not, but it's, a shorter season. It's more condensed. You're watching these guys constantly, pretty much the whole season. It's just, People can't let Julio Rodriguez go for a 1 for 20 slump and feel
Yeah.
comfortable with their investment. They're like, holy crap, this guy sucks. Let me move on from him. Let me get Jason Dominguez, who's now popular. So I'm never going to tell anybody to what to do with their money or how to go about this hobby, but patience is something that is quite often forgotten about.
Well, that's the thing. People are so infatuated with returns, quick flips. If I put $100 in today, I want 200 tomorrow. It's like
Exactly. I see that
it's like
all the time here.
it's like having, going very off topic. It's like having a stock portfolio that you're a long-term investment. You buy it for $10, you see it go down to $9 the next day, and you want to panic sell. You want to jump ship. Oh, it's going down.
Mm-hmm.
This is a terrible investment. It's kind of, it all ties. It's kind of the same thing. You got to know when to
Yeah.
buy, when to hold, when to sell it, who to buy, who to hold, who to sell, and that's all it is.
And every player, every market is going to be different. Every collector is going to be different. I mean, maybe at some point in a future episode, we can actually dive into, like, hey, if you see this guy starting to slump, maybe that's the time to buy it. Or if they're having an extended slump, maybe that's when to sell it. There's obviously times and places to buy, sell, and hold. And I think a lot of people, like you just said, they'll see a dip 2% from the $100 that they bought it. So it's now a $98 card. And crap's hitting the fan, and they need to make an action right now because people, around here want the $1,000 card for $100, and if they can't get it for $100, they don't want it at all. But
Mm-hmm.
why are you buying that $1,000 card to begin with? Because you see the potential that card has, that market has, that player has, whatever it may be, that it's a good value, and people just don't have the patience to sit on something. And sitting on something, especially with baseball, and you could argue football too, like Bryce Young, I think he's going to be fantastic outside of being an Alabama fan and a Young fan. But like, if he doesn't look good the first 4 weeks of the season, let's say he goes 0 for 4 and he's 3 touchdowns and 8 interceptions, doesn't mean he sucks. Doesn't mean you should fire sale his cards. But you know what? Go ahead, fire sale them to me. You just gotta be patient, especially with rookie quarterbacks. You need to be patient. Like, I mean,
When
what?
when everyone's selling, that's when you buy.
Exactly. Exactly. When everybody's selling, that's when you look to buy. People were selling Julio cards to buy Ellie cards. That's when you buy Julio cards because he had a great rookie season. You saw what he had, you saw the potential, and I'd say most people didn't think it was a fluky one and done kind of a season for him. You saw the potential there. And yeah, he started out struggling. Doesn't mean he's going to suck or have a crappy career. I mean, he might have sucked this whole season. That's called a sophomore slump, which is
Mm-hmm.
quite popular in all sports. I think rookies and young players need 3 years. Look good one year, look bad one year. What do you do the third year? We could look at all these 2021 quarterbacks that were drafted. T-Law sucked his first year, looked good second year. What does he do this year? Justin Fields, same thing. Mac Jones looked good year one, bad year two. What does he do? So on and so on. So as we look to round out this episode, because we're already almost at 50 minutes, which is crazy. I know we expected these episodes to be 30 to 40 minutes, and here we are almost at an hour. It's just, again, just the fluidity, the organic conversation. Hopefully you guys are enjoying because that's our goal. We want to bring you an entertaining podcast and such that you guys can enjoy, that's based on the hobby. As you guys see, we're talking about a bunch of different things, trying to stay on track, but we're talking a bunch of different things to hopefully enlighten you in your hobby endeavors. Give me, as we close out this pilot episode, Ricky, give me a bold market prediction for the upcoming football season. So off air before we start, I gave you the example, and I'll give the listeners the example too. Let's say Patrick Mahomes' market crashes because he misses 7 weeks and his touchdown interception ratio is in the negative. Just, something like that. That's not mine. I'm just giving you the example. I'm giving the listeners an example. And if you guys are listening, feel free to drop your market bold. I only want bold market predictions. Drop them in the comment as well. Reach out to me at Murph's Cardtown. Reach out to Ricky at Ricky Rips MA. We'd love to have a conversation with you on social media. But Ricky, give me a bold market prediction. Now it doesn't have to be like, oh, I think Patrick Mahomes' value is going to drop. You could,
Yeah.
it could be like, I think Justin Herbert's going to be a top 3 quarterback and win the MVP. Something like that. Again, example, guys. Example.
Well, I'm going. I hate to backtrack and say something we've already talked about, but I just think Josh Allen's gonna fall off.
Is
I
that a
just
Josh Allen thing or is that a team thing?
us both. I just don't think the Bills are going to do anything, and I think Josh Allen's market is finally gonna come down.
Cool down.
I just
Um,
he shouldn't be as hot as he is, and I think people are finally going to see that.
so I'm gonna stay in the division. I'm gonna stay in the AFC East with you. And mine, I want it to be bold, and I do think this is bold, but there is a minor what's the word I'm looking for? I can't think of the word, whatever. Oh my god, it's gonna aggravate me. I can't think of this word. But I think Tua is going to have a bounce back season. Now, he looked great last year, the games that he played, and obviously injury is a huge concern. So that's why I do think that this is bold because one injury, one concussion, he's probably done for not only the season, but probably his career, if we're being honest.
Mm-hmm.
And which is kind of scary to think about. And, whether you're a Tua, Dolphins fan, or whoever, it's kind of scary. The kid's like 23. Oh, no, maybe he's like 24, 25, whatever. I think Tua is going to have a healthy season, bounce back esque season, and he's going to at least this year look like a top 10 quarterback, which I don't think is outrageous because we could probably sit here in 10 seconds and name 10 better quarterbacks. So to make it a little bit more juicy and bold, I'm going to say top 7. Now, could I see this? Absolutely. With the weapons he has around him. Could I see him falling flat on his face? Injury or not? Of course. But that's why I think this is bold. And I think from his top 7 quarterback-esque play, I could see them winning the division. I'm not going to make that because I think that's really bold, but I
I was
think
going
Tua
to
is going to
say
be
that's a little too bold.
well, listen, I like spicy takes. I want this podcast to be juicy and entertaining. And if I have to have spicy hot takes, I will. But I think Tua being a top 7 quarterback, whether we want the metrics to be fantasy points, whether we want the metrics to be what we see on the field, a combination of everything, I think Tua, as long as he's healthy, that's caveat. That's the word I was looking for. Caveat. Caveat is as long as Tua remains healthy, he'll be a top 7 quarterback this year.
I
I don't know if
he definitely has the potential to, and the weapons.
you're so calm about that. I was just so excited. And you're just like, yeah, he could be. Sure. Yeah.
No, I'm trying to. Like the division is tough.
That's why I think it's spicy and bold.
Now that Aaron Rodgers is here too with all his weapons.
Conversation for another day. That's why Aaron Rodgers going to the AFC makes no sense because his path to the Super Bowl is significantly harder than if he went to, like, say, San Francisco or an NFC team, which obviously he was kind of linked to for a bit.
Mm-hmm.
But it's going to be exciting. I think the AFC is going to be very, very exciting. We could probably predict the NFC winners, but that's boring. And I'm very excited to see what the market looks like next time that we hop on. But before we get into any outros, Ricky, do you have any final going away takes? Anything you want to say? What it could be another bold take. It could be an outlook for the upcoming weekend of games. But do you have any going away thoughts?
Just want to thank you guys for listening to episode 1. It's been fun. Me and Murph enjoy doing this kind of stuff. By James Wood. Yeah, I'm just excited for the season to finally be here. It's been a long off season, and I'm excited to see who's gonna pan out, who's not. I think there's a lot of good teams this year, so it should be interesting, especially in the AFC. So we'll see what happens.
My going away take or thought here is the offseason is all about speculation. We know Patrick Mahomes is a 2-time Super Bowl winner. We saw that happen. We saw him win the second one. But after that, we're all speculating Burrow, Herbert, Hurts, all these guys to win a Super Bowl this year, or at least we speculate them to have a good career. But obviously, it's 1 year at a time. So I will say this. I think there's going to be a quarterback that's been under the radar. And I'm going to kind of throw like Jordan Love, Bryce Young, those kind of guys in that under the radar. I think even Pickett's been under the radar. I think an under the radar kind of guy that we haven't really been focusing on is going to perform very well to the point where I'm going to hear this at the shop. Hey, do you have any insert this guy? After 5 weeks of being the best quarterback in the league, I'm going to say no because I've already sold them all. And on top of that, I'm also going to kind of spin it and say, I think one of the quarterbacks that we have been talking about that have been hyped up, insert whoever here, but for example, it'll be like a Burrow, a Herbert, Josh Allen, Lamar. I think one of those talked about quarterbacks, it could be Ritter, Howell, people that, we've been investing in all off season, will fall flat on their face. I don't want to say flat on their face, but have an underwhelming season. I don't think that's a bold take. I just think that's an interesting going away nugget to kind of consider as we approach week 1 and as we approach the football season as a whole, is just be prepared for that, because it happens every year in fantasy. A running back's going to go crazy and some running back's going to suck. It's going to happen in the card market too. And hopefully people are ready to see that. But as it is now almost noon, do have to end today's episode. Thank you guys so much for joining, and we're very, very excited for the next episode. Ricky, it was an absolute pleasure. Hopefully we have another great conversation next time, which I know we will.
Pleasure as always. Follow us on Instagram, YouTube, all that good stuff. Hit us up, talk to us. We like interacting with everyone.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
That's what the hobby's about.
Ladies, gentlemen, thank you so much. We will catch you in the next one. But until then, we're going to see you.